Hi, welcome to another edition of my podcast entitled The Wright Experience. I'm Dr. William T. Wright Jr., the founder and host of this show. I have been fortunate enough to serve public school children and staff members for the past 23 years, including the last 8 as a school superintendent. Over those years, I've been fortunate enough to be able to make and meet some amazing school leaders from all across the United States. The vision of this show is to make sure that we share these podcasts with you so that we all can grow, learn, and get better, and learn from people who are leading others every day. Our initial focus will be on educational leaders, and we'll look to expand to other disciplines down the road. When you hear something that you like, please drop us a comment, click like, or if you are viewing us via YouTube, please click like, and most importantly, that subscribe button. I've been amazed at the responses we've gotten thus far. The show is growing by leaps and bounds, and for that, I'm thankful to you. Tonight is episode 16 of The Wright Experience. My guest is certainly considered to be what we call a rising star in the superintendency. He leads one of the smallest districts in the state of North Carolina. However, he's provided some amazing leadership through some challenging times. That leadership has provided opportunities to rebuild a storm-ravaged school and community, and the challenge of COVID-19 led him to seek innovative connectivity strategies for his students and staff. I'm so proud of the progress that he continues to make for his community. My guest tonight is Mr. Steve Basnight. Steve Basnight has been in education for the last 36 years. He spent the first 20 years teaching high school social studies as well as coaching football for 13 years and basketball for 8 years. Steve moved into administration in 2006 as an administrative intern and has served as assistant principal and principal. He served at the district level and he became the superintendent of Hyde County schools in 2018. Mr. Basnight was twice named District Principal of the Year in Currituck County Schools as principal of J.P. Knapp Early College. Since taking over as superintendent in Hyde, Steve has led the system through the aftermath of Hurricane Dorian, the COVID-19 pandemic, and through the beginning of the rebuild of Ocracoke School. He currently sits on several state-level committees and was recently elected as the vice chairman of the Northeast RESA. Steve is spending quite a lot of time recently working on 2 separate pilot projects that we'll hear about tonight that have the potential of providing broadband access to many of the rural north locations in Northeast North Carolina and throughout the state. Steve's wife, Ashley, is also an educator who has taught high school marketing, fashion merchandising, and is currently a career development coordinator in a middle school. They have 3 children, Josh, 31, Cole, 22, and Sarah, 13. At this time, I'd like to welcome to the Wright Experience, my friend, Mr. Steve Basnight. How you doing?
It is an honor to be here with you. Thank you very much.
Pleasure to have you. I see you got the HYDE in the background there. All right,
yeah.
all right.
I may be small, but we're big.
There you go. There you go. I like that. I like that. I might use that. All right. So welcome to the show, and want to get right into some questions here. Mr. Basnight, as we all are in the process of working right now through preparations for a new school year, talk to us a little bit about the amazing things that are currently going on in Hyde County schools.
Well, I almost want to take the COVID year out of the equation, just set it on a shelf somewhere and talk about some things that we had going on before that and that we're hoping to get back to get started again. And a lot of that dealt with growth instead of concentrating on just getting proficiency, provide those things for students that enhance their growth, that encourage growth. But to do that, you have to do the same thing for teachers. So we were off to a really good start there the first year and a half, and then Dorian jumped on us and with a hurricane, and then COVID followed right after that. So in my mind, I'm just going to take that piece out, and we're gonna start next year just sort of backtracking to where we were before the pandemic, and we're going to pick it up from right there, and you're going to see big things. I really believe that.
Very good. And you've stood strong through all of that. It's certainly been a very challenging time. Your pandemic kind of started before the pandemic in Hyde for sure.
It,
Um,
it definitely did. But there's
it
good
did.
people out here. I mean, William, I work with people that have made what we've attempted to do successful. And you know good and well, it doesn't come back to one person. It
That's right.
comes to all the people that you have around you, and we've got good people, and there's good people in Hyde, and people jumped in and helped each other, and I'm very proud of the work that they're doing in our district.
So let's talk a little bit about that whole rebuilding. Your school community, particularly Ocracoke Island, was devastated by hurricane damage, as we've already mentioned. Yet you rebuilt and are in the process, I think, of finishing up that. So what lessons did you learn during that process that might be helpful to our viewers?
Well, I think even in a crisis like a hurricane or the pandemic, the focus has to be on one thing, and that's children.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, really easy to get distracted by all the things that are going on around you, whether it's housing or have 60% of your staff being homeless, or who's sick and who's not sick, and what are you doing to try to protect your people. All those things can be a tremendous distraction from what we're here to really do. And we're here for kids, and we're employing adults for kids. And everything in my mind, and it hasn't been a hard sell to the people in our district, but it's about students. I've got a sign behind my desk that says, is that what's best for students? Mm-hmm. And everything we do runs through that one question. So it hasn't been difficult to keep people focused, but again, being perfectly honest with you, we're tired. Yeah, sure. And starting with Dorian on Ocracoke Island, going all the way through to the following March, where we were just coming out of the dark, really, on Ocracoke to reopen and let people in, and then the pandemic shuts everything down, and we fought our way literally through a year of hybrid and remote learning to get back to in person. We've just finished that year up, and if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times to the people in Raleigh. If anybody's listening, our staff's tired. They're mentally exhausted. And to roll right into summer school with a week off, and that's going to take up all the summer. My real concern right now is October.
That's right.
What's the staff going to look like? What's the student body going to look like in October and November of next year? Because that's only a third of the way through the school year.
Yeah, and you remember some of the conversations we had. I've been very vocal about that. My wish, in fact, was that we had shut down for a period of time and then come back with a good, strong, early start, as opposed to the way we're doing it now. So absolutely agree with that. But we've got some good outcomes. We just finished our first week of summer school, and some amazing things happening. We're kind of
I've been there. I've been in schools 3 days, and there's some incredible things going on. And
that's right.
The people are good. They're good, and they're working hard.
Yeah, but like you said, October's coming, and I just hope that our folks have the energy to be able to continue, and I believe they will. But as you said, we're tired. That's exactly right. So, Mr. Basnight, the landscape of schools appears to be changing rapidly. You like how I wrote that one. What do you see schools being like and looking like in the future?
Well, let me say it this way. Let's hope so.
Yeah.
It's for a long time, there's been things that we've looked at and said, there's a better way.
Sure.
And even if we didn't know the better way, it was pretty obvious that we could do it differently. We could do it better. And what I'm hoping is that someone is going to step back with enough leadership for us all at the state level to say, okay, so what works and what doesn't? And let's get rid of the stuff that doesn't work. You're just continuing to test kids because we need to give them a test. To me, that's not a benefit. Let's give them something that says where they are, so we can go in and address that particular student, as opposed to trying to teach everybody in the classroom at the same level.
Right.
William, I was in a classroom for 20 years. I've never stopped being a teacher. And I'm constantly reminding myself of what it was like to stand in that classroom with 32 kids in front of you, and they're all at different places, and the struggles that it takes for a teacher to pull those kids along sometimes. And staffing's no different. Teachers are my class at this point. I'm trying to strengthen each one of them, grow each one of them, and everybody's at a different place. And there's, and we talk about this. There are some really good ideas out there about how we can improve what we do as a school. Another benchmark that I use in decision making is my own kids. I've got three very different children, and I can see my kids in every class, and I'll say, so, how would Cole react in that situation, or how would Josh react to that happening in class, or what does Sarah need to be successful, and how can I give her that while doing the same thing to all the rest of the kids in the classroom, and that really helps me, grounds me. It brings me back to what's important, and just really putting myself in that situation. So when parents come to talk to me about their kids or the struggles or a concern they have, I really try to personalize it. I try to put it back in my life and say, how would I want that to happen if I was sitting on the other side of this table or desk?
Awesome. That's great advice. Parents first. That's right. So, Mr. Basnight, my first superintendency was in McCormick, South Carolina, where the district housed about 800 students, so probably similar in size to your district. So what advice would you give to a new superintendent starting their career as a district leader in a small rural district?
You can't do it by yourself.
There you go.
And that's, you're a new superintendent, you come into a job, you've got these aspirations and dreams that if I ever get to that point, I'm going to do it this way, or I want to be able to try to do that, or I want to provide this. And it really comes down to your team. It comes down to the people you surround yourself with. And that doesn't mean that you have to go and bring somebody in for every position. You've got good people in every district. And when you take over a position, there's good things happening there, and you need to see it and find it and highlight it and elevate those people. If they're doing it the way that you think it should be done, let them know, pat them on the back, and put them in a position to say, here's what I'm doing. I'll go back to one of my first superintendent's meetings. Mm-hmm. I was amazed to walk into that next generation superintendent's program that Jack Oak does for us, that there was no hierarchy. It didn't matter if you had been a superintendent 10 years or 15 years, or, Dr. Williams in Northeast North Carolina that's been in Gates County forever. None of that mattered. When you were in that room, you were a superintendent, and you were treated as a superintendent, and everybody was willing to step up and help you. And that's, I think that's the most important thing I could share. Pick up the phone and call somebody in that room. If you're struggling in this position as a new superintendent, or if you have a question come up that you haven't been able to address yet, call somebody, talk to people. I know in the Northeast, we're still meeting every week. It's a Zoom meeting, but we're all there face to face, and it means something. Because every week something has come up, whether it was dealing with a pandemic or whether we were in school or not in school and who was doing what. And to be able to ask 16 people that are in the same position you're in, how they're handling something every week, that's powerful. And so, check your ego at the door and be willing to reach out to folks.
Exactly. Very good. So we'll talk a little bit about the connectivity things that you have going on in your district, but this is a little bit of a different question. From your experience thus far, 3 years now as a superintendent, what are some things that leaders do to stay connected?
Well, and I think with me particularly, it's being in the school.
Sure.
I do not ever want to get so far away that when someone comes and talks to me about something going on in the school, I have to research whatever it was. I want a teacher to be able to say, so and so did this, and I had to do that, or this child was struggling with, and I want to be able to say, have you tried this? And you can't do that from an office chair. That's walking down a hallway, walking into a classroom. Somebody the other day, it was interesting. We were walking around Madam Skeet Elementary, and I had a guest with me, and we walked into the room, and I went through the door first, and the kids sort of glanced at the door and then went right back to their classwork. Mm. And the person that was with me came in behind me, and everything stopped. All the heads turned to see who it was, and one of the kids goes, "They're with Mr. Basnight," and they went back to class, right back to what they were doing. They're so used to seeing me in a classroom that I don't disrupt class when I open the door. And I think that speaks volumes. If I'm in there that much, then I'm a regular member of the class, and they don't have to put on for me. They don't have to show off so that the teacher looks good, and all those things that happen when someone infrequently walks into the room. And I think that's very important, to maintain that connection with what's going on. I tell our people all the time, William, the teachers are the ones that have to make it work. We can sit back and come up with all the dreams that we can have, but it's got to translate to what goes on in that classroom. And those teachers have to have the ability to make it work. And it can't be something that's so overwhelming that it wears them out. So, maintaining that connection to the classroom, I think that's the highest calling of what we do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Outstanding. So, since we're on the connectivity train, so to speak, talk to us a little bit about the innovative things that you're doing to try to increase connectivity in your district.
We are so excited. When I first got into Hyde County, I grew up on the Outer Banks, so I had an idea of the number of days that Ocracoke missed in particular. A storm goes by off the coast, and all of a sudden they're out of school for 3 days just from rain. But if the wind shifts and they get tied, then they're out of school. And we're missing a lot of days. I grew up missing a lot of days of school because of weather. And even when I was at JP Knapp, we were one-to-one, so all the kids had their computers. And I kept saying, well, what if we're able to, on a snow day, on a flood day where the tide comes up, what if we're able to just go to remote? That the teachers get up, we can't bring the kids in, the buses can't run. We announce it's a remote day. The kids log on their computer, go to first period, go to second period, and just make it school. And we called it Schools Without Walls. So that we could do school anywhere. So when I got to Hyde, we really started working on that from the very beginning. And the week that the governor closed school, we had a plan for the next week. It was on Thursday, we met with the principals. And the following week, we were going to have a work day on Monday, and we were going to get all the kids to log in. Then we were going to come to school on Tuesday so we could iron out any of the problems that we'd had on Monday. Then we were going to have a work day on Wednesday, and we were going to do a remote learning day. Then we were going to come back to school on Thursday and iron out all the problems. Simple things like, what's my password? What's the website address? And so when the governor held his press conference on Friday afternoon and said, we're not closing schools, we were like, yes, we've got the plan. And then on Saturday, he closed schools. And so the practice time went out the window. But we had some things in place already. We were using what I call a remote learning lesson plan. And the benefit to that was if we did the lesson plans that were effective in a remote environment, they were real easy to do in a face-to-face environment. So just getting all that in the right direction, and then we closed schools. And what we find out very quickly is if you've got 65% of your population that can't log on to the internet, you can't do a whole lot of remote learning unless you run off pieces of paper and hand out packets. And that's a nightmare to try to do. And we some people did and were able to survive, but that's not the best way to do this. When we first polled our community, it was something like 35% of the people said they didn't have internet. And I was like, that can't be right, because, we got kids that can't log on. So the next survey we sent out, I asked, I need to know if you have usable internet, not if you just have it. If you have it and it kicks you off every 2 minutes, it's not usable. And that number jumped to 65% of our population. And at that point, we knew we had to do something to help, because we didn't know how long we were going to be in remote. What we were able to do is, in connecting with NC State University and the Friday Institute, we were able to get some funding through them through 2 separate grants. On Ocracoke Island, SpaceX was doing some beta testing with some technology that they have called Starlink. And there's been a lot of talk about Starlink. If they blast off one of those satellite rockets from Cape Canaveral, it carries about 60 separate satellites, and it'll go up into outer space, and then the satellites separate. And sometimes you can see a straight line of stars in space. And, of course, stars don't fall in straight lines. So you can pretty much tell there's something strange going on. Those are our SpaceX satellites. And every time SpaceX launches another rocket, the signals get stronger. So we were able to open up a cell in the SpaceX universe with Starlink satellite and shoot the technology from those satellites that are orbiting the Earth down to Ocracoke. We've right now got 47 different homes that are linked up to Starlink, and they're receiving satellite connectivity from those satellites. And what they're doing is they're literally creating a fishing net of satellites in outer space that cross each other, so that as soon as one goes out of range, if you've ever had DirecTV or any of the satellite televisions, if the satellite goes out of range, you lose a signal or it gets weak. Well, they're putting them so many satellites in space and so close together that you're never going to be out of range of a satellite. Once one satellite moves across the sky, another one's coming up, so it'll pick up the signal. And every time they blast off a rocket, the signal gets stronger. So we're doing that satellite, the Starlink satellite technology on Ocracoke, because we've got an entire village there that's in about a 1.5 mile area total, which made it really easy to do. On the mainland, in a separate pilot project, we're doing something called TV White Space Project, which actually uses old TV signals. Before we went to digital television, there's a UHF dial. Remember, you used to have to get up and go turn the TV dial to change the channel. Well, there was a second dial, and that was UHF. And those signals are still out there. And what they're able to do, we're working with the River Street networks. What they're able to do is they're able to shoot that internet signal onto one of those cable signals. And it's not wiring, it's literally flying through the air. And those signals aren't being used anymore. And luckily, Hyde has a lot of them. So we're actually shooting with an antenna from the water tower in Englehart, TV white space signal out to homes. And the beauty of TV white space for North Carolina in particular is that it's not negatively affected by pine needles. Regular cable signal is a very tiny beam, and a pine needle tears them up. They can't go through it. But TV white space is a broad beam, so it actually goes through it, around it, and you have a lot less interference from trees. And so we've got, right now, I think we're almost up to 30 units around Englehart. I was in a meeting yesterday and today, and we're hoping in the next week to be able to announce that we're going to increase the hardware that we have in Hyde County to broadcast that TV white space signal, move that out to the western end of the county, Scranton and Ponzer, that really have very little connectivity to anything, cell phones or anything, and be able to hit some of those houses out there. And that way we'll have Englehart on one end of the county and the western boundary on the western end of the county. And then we're going to use the radio tower on Madam Skeet's campus. broadcast those signals there. We literally can cover about 50 miles with all of that. All of this is brand new, William. It's not been done. And we're learning every time we do something. Okay, that didn't work. We need to improve this, or how about if we use that technology? So everything we're doing is trial and error. But what we're finding is the SpaceX technology is working very well at Ocracoke. They get some drops in their internet for a couple minutes when the satellites go out of the way. But every time they blast off a new rocket, we get more satellites. So that signal is going to get nothing but stronger. The TV white space pilot that we're doing on the mainland is showing some real promise. And between those two things, I'm really hoping that we're able to take that technology to Northeast North Carolina, to Hertford County, to Bertie, to Edgecombe, places that really are having a hard time getting touched right now, because it's working, and it's just a matter of being able to do it to scale. And somebody's going to make a heck of a profit off of it at some point. Right now, we're just trying to get internet to kids.
Awesome. You're really doing some innovative work down there with that, and hats off to you for getting that going. I'm really excited to see the outcome and to look at some things like that, because I think our numbers were 54% or something like that of at least, as you're saying, working good internet for our county, and we even have teachers that didn't have it. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
One of the things that really challenged us a lot about that was, it's one thing for somebody to sit in Raleigh and say, put them on remote. Well, that's easy in Wright County.
Sure.
I mean, you literally can cover a whole building with one dish.
That's right.
When you get out to where we are, and the houses are a couple miles apart with lots of farmland in between and very little vertical assets to put satellite dishes and things like that on, it's an entirely different ballgame. So the equity of those things, our kids cannot log on when other kids in North Carolina can. That's not equity. And we need to be able to fairly provide for our kids just like everybody else in the state does.
Absolutely. So Mr. Basnight, what's been the most surprising thing that you've discovered about the superintendency?
I'll go back to what I said a while ago. I think it's the camaraderie. I think it's the connectivity of every superintendent in the state of North Carolina. I think it's having the ability to reach out to Chip, going into his retirement. I think it's that you're not in it alone, that we're all in it together, and we're all willing to work to help everybody else out. That's probably been the biggest surprise, because when you look at districts, Hertford County and Hyde County are two different places. They have different economies. They have different populations, but you and I are dealing with the same things on any given day.
That's right.
Oliver Holly and I talk all the time. He's neighboring with me right there in Terrell County. We're dealing with a lot of the same things.
Sure.
But to go to the meetings we go to, and that Jack Oak provides for us those opportunities, and to be able to talk with Rob Jacksons and Ethan Linkers and all the people that come sit in that room with us, and have really frank conversations. I think that's been the greatest, nicest surprise of the whole thing.
Very, very good. So interacting with elected officials is an integral part of a successful superintendency. You like that one? So what are some things that you consider when the need for that interaction arises? In other words, when you're having to interact with elected officials, what are some things that you consider?
First and foremost, I remind people this all the time. There's no political party in school.
Right.
We deal with kids. And so when I go talk to an elected official, I don't care whether they're Republican or Democrat, because what I'm going in to talk to them about has nothing to do with the political party. I'm talking about providing equity, equal access, opportunity. I'm talking about providing for the next generation of North Carolinians. And to me, a political party ideology has nothing to do with that. It's about what's best for kids. And I'll go back to that same statement. So when I go to Raleigh, and believe me, since Hurricane Dorian, I've spent a many hour knocking on doors in Raleigh, and the people that I've gotten to work with are incredible. Bobby Hannig has done a tremendous job for us since Dorian, and he was new to the job coming into that storm. So, we're all on the same page when it comes to providing for kids, and that's when I go in somebody's office to sit down and tell them where we are and what we need. I'm speaking for every child that we have in Hyde County schools, or in this new position as vice chair of the RISA. I'm speaking for every child in Northeast North Carolina, and most people are willing to listen to you when you talk to them from your heart.
Right.
When it's not a job, it's passion and it's a calling, and that's politics don't play into that game.
Well, I'm certainly glad, as superintendent of Hertford County Schools, that you're there to help represent us, because I know that we're going to continue to have a good voice in the Northeast for our children. So thank you for that.
Thank you so very much.
And so, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us about the work that you're doing that I have overlooked or missed, perhaps?
I think you've covered everything we're doing in Hyde County, and I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to sort of get this word out so that people can know some of the great things happening in the smallest district in North Carolina. And you're
doing some amazing work. Hold on for me for a minute here, and we'll be right back to close the show.
Thank you.
So next week, ladies and gentlemen, I have the pleasure of planning what I call a special episode of the Wright Experience. Over the next few days, I'm going to be taking the opportunity to post on social media platform, particularly the Facebook Live page, an opportunity for you to submit questions about leadership. And then next week, in the Facebook page link is below. It is simply at WRIGHTEXP. And so I will take the opportunity to answer those questions next week on a special edition of the Wright Experience. That's going to be Thursday, June 24th at 7:00 p.m. So if you ever wanted the opportunity to ask me some questions about leadership, this is going to be your opportunity to do so. You may submit those questions, as I said, via my Facebook page, which is WRIGHTEXP. And then post requesting those questions will be forthcoming. Certainly trying something new. We'll see how this episode goes. And then the following episodes will go right back to featuring some more amazing guests. July is going to feature a very diverse group of leaders. We'll have community college leaders. We'll have an assistant superintendent from the state of Maryland. And we will also have a CEO from a charter school group in Chicago, Illinois. So we're certainly looking forward to continuing to expand our portfolio and add to the amazing leaders that we've already shared with you. And so we hope that you're enjoying these podcasts that we're bringing to you. And we're continuing to, of course, expand our platform and continue to bring you the very best and most amazing leaders that I can find. So, Mr. Basnight, it's a pleasure, certainly a pleasure to have you. Oh, you got me on there, huh? Okay.
Submitting questions.
I'm gonna feed me some. All right. Well, that's all right. I'm ready for them. So, Mr. Basnight, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this Wright Experience podcast and for being my guest. Certainly appreciate your willingness to be a part of it, and look forward to having you back on this platform at a later date. Certainly want to learn more about the amazing things that are going on in your district and as your service on the executive board and so forth. And certainly to the audience, I hope that this podcast continues to serve to motivate us all to be better.
Thank you,
And
Dr.
so
Wright.
thank you all for watching. Mr. Basnight, thank you so much for being a part of the Wright experience. Good evening.